here at the Green Point, northwest coast of Tasmania, with Bulldog, Circle Head Aboriginal Corporation.
This is a very significant area here on the northwest west coast, and the significance of it is that there's very much Aboriginal presence on this very land we're standing on. That all changed when European settlement came through the waters that are behind us, and the Aboriginal people from these tribal name groups became very protective of their land, which they should have too, because this was their country. They lived the country, and their country was their healing puppies. So for me, it's about the traumas that are affecting Aboriginal people today come from that generation of that time when the European settlers came in and took over the land and took over people's cultures. They not only took over the land, they stripped them of their culture.
It's an elephant in the room, and you pointed out previously that Bishop Montgomery has had a very serious impact on Aboriginal culture. So could you unpack that a bit for us, please?
So Bishop Montgomery used to go to Cape Barren Island in the late 1800s, and he would, he wanted the Cape Barren Island people to be to do as he wanted, and not what they wanted. So he was demanding certain things of the small community on Cape Barren Island. And when the family started to rebel and say, no, we want to be our own bosses ourselves, we want to be in control of our own destiny, Montgomery was involved in writing up some rules and regulations. So that became enacted as the Cape Barren Island, I think it was called the Cape Barren Island Half-Caster Reserve, and that was established in 1901. Thereabouts, and it didn't expire until 1951. So that reserve controlled the movement of people, and when Montgomery decided they should be controlled, that really did cause them a lot of grief and pain, and it really made them reliant on welfare. And that's so sad, because they were very proud and honourable people. And so Montgomery had a lot to answer for.
250 years ago was the richest people in the world. We had song, we had dance, we had traditions, we had governance, we had laws, we had boundaries, we had all these things in place, and we was rich with resources. And after the invasion, they took all that away. They took away language, they took away children, they took away our right to our economy. They took everything away from us. With taking the land, they not only took our land, they took our children away. They institutionalised, they was part of the role of institutionalising our children, and part of that stolen generation that churches belonged to, thinking that that was what they was supposed to do when they wasn't, and how we now forge ahead together to make change to help those families that's been in that stolen generation, but also talking about the responsibility of telling the truth of the atrocities that happen in this land, to make, and it's not about to make people feel guilty, but it's to make people aware of what happened in the past, so we can go ahead in the future. Because while all that bubbles away by itself, we will never have a reconciliation. We need to have that truth out and out, and we need to have truth and treaty. Those things all are going to travel together, and healing, I think, for these generations will be very important, and how we go about doing that healing through churches, through education, they're going to be the important steps.
Aboriginal education is mainly for the non-Indigenous student, but it benefits the Aboriginal student. If they can be in a classroom where they are seeing role models or hearing voices of other Aboriginal people, then that makes that place a bit more inclusive. A lot of us are focused on changing what happens in schools to make schools more inviting and more responsive to Aboriginal kids. And then we're also trying to educate all kids, towards reconciliation. If we understand each other and know more about each other, then we can help each other. Because generally Aboriginal people have have high unemployment rates. The other problem, we've got a high incarceration rates. And why do young people get in trouble with the law, or old people in trouble with the law? A lot of the time, I think it's because they're not at work. You know, work, I think, can save people. And the other problem that we're working with high youth disengagement from school is that high youth suicide. And why does that happen? And it's because these young people don't have any sense of power over their lives. They feel quite powerless. They haven't got any aspiration, or if they had it, it's been knocked out of them because they've had so many, you know, knockbacks over time, and so they've lost their confidence. And so I think it's really an onus on all of us to try and create opportunities for people, support them either with scholarships or, you know, bursaries to keep on at school, because families can't afford it.
And the Aboriginal people were then denied their cultural identity, and that still occurs today. People are being restricted from culture, their identity, their language, their education. You know, there was many times when families were torn apart by Europeans. Children were taken into missions, into white man families, and they were then, you know, scrubbed to the point where they were trying to scrub the colour of their skin to bring them back to what they perceived to be turning these Aboriginal people into white people. And that trauma has been embedded in our Aboriginal people of today, one through the stolen generation. You know, there's a lot of media around deaths in custody, incarceration of Aboriginal people. And, you know, when we look at that, the numbers and the statistics of a lot of those things are quite high amongst Aboriginal people.
And we need to address the issues of why we've got so many people in the prison system, why we've got so many people dying so young, and why we're locking up young kids. A lot of the laws are directed directly at Aboriginal people right around this country, designed to lock our people up. So that genocide to Aboriginal people is still going on today, and the prison is part of that genocide. Until we can address those issues, we're not going to heal the country, we're not going to sing the song together, we're not going to stand for the same song, we're going to stand apart. And I think that healing is going to be really important going ahead in the future, how to heal, but to bring everyone to be equal.
It's a lovely little cartoon where, you know, these boxes are all equal, but some might need 1, 2 or 3 boxes to look over the fence. That's equity, that's sharing, and so that's what I'd like to see. You know, and that's the other thing. There are many of our young ones want to be rangers and want to be heritage officers, and they want to work on country and to keep country alive, to care for country, to heal country. And if you heal country, you then heal yourself. And we, you know, I think that's what's so beautiful about our present generation. Not only are they proud to say they are Aboriginal, they also want to be part of the healing and practice, keeping the practice alive.
Look, we're very proud of, you know, people are proud of their 230 years. Well, we're proud of our 50 or 60,000 years as well. Let's try and combine this, that we're going to go down a road together. They're not all getting on a ship and going back to England. We're going to have to work together with what we've got and how we work together and come together to make this a stronger nation. We need to be, you know, starting to think about how we're going to do that, how we're going to talk about ancient dance, ancient language, ancient medical systems.
In 1837, it was recorded that at Waibalena there were 200 people living there then, and between those 200 there were 8 to 10 languages being spoken.
Right.
I think that's incredible. And that person who recorded this said that they were teaching each other their own languages. But that time of 200 people speaking 8 to 10 languages, from the past, it reminds me that we should honour all of our languages. And so in the present day, there's a big move across Tasmania that we should revive all of the languages that have been recorded.
Learn the words, and they're beautiful words. They sound lovely as well. Mm.
Is it appropriate for non-Aboriginal people to learn Palawakani?
I think they'll learn them as it becomes more available. So through the dual naming, we're beginning to learn those words now anyway. And greetings like Yarpalingana, on signage. So I think anything in the public domain, people are going to share and use together.
With all of the loss and tragedy of history that happened to our people, it's the survival that we celebrate, because in our veins we have the blood of our ancestors, but we also but we also remember that the country holds the memory of our ancestors. So when we're on country, we celebrate our ancestors in that way, as part of the living landscape that reminds us of the thousands of years that our people lived here and survived here.
Indeed. Yeah.
When we talk about history, we can't change history. All we can do is make better pathways for our future. And I think by us having this conversation, that's already part of the process.
And you'll feel for the future, the direction that we're on.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I feel really privileged to be here and sharing the journey with you and Bonnie and Joel, and I think that this is the start of something big. And maybe the Anglican Church might be the leaders in bringing other people together to understand that our blood's the same colour, and that to me is an important statement, because we all seek to share what we have, to pass it on, which is something that couldn't have been passed on from our ancestors. But the knowledge that we have, we need to be able to share it, and I think this is the first step.
So we're looking at churches now who was part of the problem in the early days now to be part of the solution. And this country's maturing as well. This country's 230, 240 years old now, and it's starting to take responsibility of its actions, and I think churches are got to play a major role.
Are there ways that we can encourage our Aboriginal friends to engage in culture?
Well, I think going to the festivals is one way. Going along to their local branch meetings, becoming involved in the community. Sometimes you can form a network like this. Certain individuals in the community who are good at things, and so they'll organise events around that, whether it's painting or basket making or whatever, and you can go along and get involved in those things. But you won't know about them unless you're part of that community. Mm-hmm. So you've got to make contact with the organisations generally. That's the way to get in, or go along to the public events when they're held. And there's lots of things held during Reconciliation Week and NAIDOC Week and Harmony Day and Sorry Day. There are a number of important dates in the annual calendar where the broader community can get involved.
That's one of the wonderful things about the present day, is that celebrating Aboriginal identity is starting to become more acceptable, which I think is fabulous. But those sad times, the racism and the impacts of the racism is such a scourge. It's something that we have to deal with, and I think the church should be helping to deal with that impact. Look,
it's been a real privilege to sit with you and listen and learn from you today, Auntie Patsy. So we don't rejoice entirely because there's still so much to be done, but we look forward to better things in the future.
Thank you. Thanks, John.